You know what? It's been a pretty good year. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to be doing my December wrap-up. And man, it has just been a crazy good year on Booktube. And so before I get into the actual books, I just kind of want to comment and for one, just give a huge thank you to everyone who's watching my videos, commenting, liking, subscribing, all of that stuff. Everyone who has joined us in the Discord. It has just been so much fun. And despite the fact that I had a channel for a long time before really being a part of the community, this was really, 2021 was really like my first actual year. It felt like really being a part of the Booktube community, because before that I just had videos with no video, just audio and a still, and nobody ever saw any of them. And so really looking back, this feels kind of like my first full year on Booktube. And it's just been a blast. I've met so many awesome people, found so many awesome channels, and I really have had a really great time, and none of that would be possible without each and every one of you who actually watches some random guy talk about books and enjoys talking to me about books. So, a lot of fun. Huge thank you. The growth of this channel has been way more than I ever thought would happen at all. So, it's been a wild ride. So, let's, though, talk about what I read in December. So the first thing, the series I just was going to finish, absolutely going to finish by the end of the year, was Crown of Stars. So when I did my November wrap-up, or December TBR, I don't remember, I was still reading The Gathering Storm, which is the biggest out of the series. I finished that really early. And then I pretty much just ended up binging the last two, In the Ruins and Crown of Stars. And so what that turned out is I read 2,000 pages of this series in a week and a half or so. And no regrets whatsoever. So I don't have individual reviews. I did for the first 2, possibly 3 books. But I stopped doing individual reviews, but I did put out a Why You Should Read Crown of Stars. So definitely check that out if you want to hear more about Crown of Stars. It is a series I have just absolutely loved. It definitely jumped up into my list of all-time favorites and is definitely there in that top 10. And Kate Elliott is absolutely an author I want to read everything she's written at this point, because I've really been having a fantastic time with this series and can't wait to find out more. So I did end up starting my second Booktube spin pick. So my Booktube spin this time was not much of a success, because my first pick was Mordu. I didn't really care for Mordu. I finished it though. My second pick, and I actually unhauled my copy, so I don't have any more, but was Spying of the Dragon by Kevin J. Anderson. And I DNF'd this one pretty quickly. I included both of them in when I did the first chapter challenge, and Mordu ended up winning that. And Spying of the Dragon just kind of felt really generic, and it was just kind of clumsily being set up. And that really continued. I got 100 pages in, and all we were doing was still introducing characters and kind of sloppily giving them exposition and backstories. And a lot of them were just either the same exact thing, or just trying to make it overly tragic. And none of it landed with me. I really wasn't feeling it at all, and I just decided, I got plenty of other stuff to read in December, so I DNF'd and unhauled both that and the second book, which I also already had. So that wasn't so great, but I did have some other good books too. So one specific thing that I want to mention that I read that I really, really enjoyed was The Flashlighters by Daniel Barnett. And this is continuing my read-through of Nightmareland, which I've absolutely been loving. I've talked about this, and so you've probably heard it enough in some of my other videos, but it is a horror series. It starts out very atmospheric horror, and then is going kind of full-blown horror, I feel starting with The Flashlighters, and I feel that's going to very much continue in the next couple of books. But I was already reading this on the recommendation of Andrew and Leslie, and then I found out about a series of live shows that are being hosted by Steve Talks About Books and stuff. And so I immediately jumped on that. And so I will link down, did a live show for the Flashlighters and for the book before that as well. Also, and so those were a ton of fun to do. Daniel Burnett actually there, and I really, really have been enjoying these books. I cannot wait to continue. Actually, I'm starting City of Blood tonight, the night that I'm filming this, so really excited to get into that one. But I've just been loving these, so these have been a lot of fun. They're short, and it was just great to read something that's relatively short and that just really pulls me in. And the Flashlighters really, really stuck with just not doing anything I expected. It didn't have twists. It didn't try to trick you. It just basically used what you think, like your perceptions, and then it did something different. And it all made sense, and the way it was done I thought was really fantastic, because like I said, it wasn't like, oh, it was this all along. It was like, no, like all of the signs are here, you just misread them because you had these preconceived notions. And the way, what Daniel Burnett accomplished in that book, I absolutely loved it, and it just was so well done. I've been so impressed with him, and he's another author I can't wait to finish this and read his other stuff as well. So speaking of both buddy reads and live shows, I also read A Betrayal in Winter, Book 2 in the Long Price Quartet by Daniel Abraham. I have really been loving this series so far as well. I did do a live show for Shadow and Summer, the first book, which I'll link down below also. But this one, we'll be doing a live show, which will be on my channel here probably in a couple of weeks after this comes out. And I really enjoyed it. This is one of those series that I think is not going to be for everybody. It's not going to land because it's very slow in a lot of ways, and not a lot is always happening. But it is very much all about the like overarching political machinations of a society in a lot of ways, and looking at how a lot of things work with like trade and the transition of power. And it's done really well, and I found it very entertaining and really been enjoying it. As Andrew described it, as like a Rube Goldberg machine of politics, basically, where you just see all these cause and effect type things, which I think is pretty apt, but it's all handled really well, and there's so much that ties in. I was really surprised, though, because these books all have time gaps between them, and I was not expecting with the time gap, we didn't get a whole lot of information about what happened with certain things from the first book, and so I'm really curious to see what books 3 and 4 are like, and I've heard that it continues to build and that it still does tie in and elevate, but honestly, the way that these books have been going, I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen, and I'm really interested to find out. So I then did, because I was trying to get some shorter books in, I started Never Die, and this, I just wasn't really feeling it. I didn't read all that far in. I got, looks like 54 pages, 7 chapters in. I wasn't really feeling it, so this was a soft DNF. I'm not specifically DNFing it. I still intend to read it. It just wasn't really doing it for me at the time. It wasn't bad or anything. It just wasn't pulling me in, and I had more stuff I wanted to get to. So I decided to put it down. So just noting, if I end up not continuing it, I guess I'll mention that another time. But at this point, I still plan to just kind of a soft DNF. And then, speaking of, I guess I should talk about that one next. Speaking of DNFs, this one was more of a hard DNF. I was also reading Tempest of Bravoure, and this is a trilogy. And I'll have it on the screen here because I'm drawing a blank on the author's name, but I'll have it right here specifically. And this was in e-arc I got, and it was an e-arc for like the trilogy and some short stories all coming together in a box set, which is actually just a digital thing. And it sounded cool. I really liked the premise, and when I started reading it, it seemed like it was going to be really interesting. I was planning on finishing the whole thing, because it's not crazy long. I think it'd be like less than 1,000 pages if it was physical for the whole series. So I'm like, I can probably do that. And I was planning on pushing through, reading that the rest of the month, and I did go out of order. Reading that the rest of the month, it was the last thing I was really focusing on. And I just, the further I got into it, the more I just wasn't a huge fan. It was well written for the most part, but it just seemed very inconsistent. Early on, a lot of the chapter transitions were kind of weird. Like, there'd be story, and then there'd be a little bit of random exposition, and then we're just at the next chapter. Some of the characters seem to make really sudden, huge changes without a lot of reason. And even just, like, the dialogue and the way people were acting, like, it'd be really serious, and then someone's giggling, and it just kind of wasn't really coming together for me. And so, especially with how much I had left of it, I was gonna at least finish the first book. I had like 2 hours of the first book on the Kindle, I think I checked, and I'm like, I don't really want to spend another 2 hours on this, because that was a significant amount of a different book I could have gotten into. So I ended up DNFing that one, which I don't really like to DNF e-arcs very much, but at the same time, there's too many things I need to read. So if I'm not feeling something, I've just gotten better about putting it down. And maybe I'll go back to it at some point and try to read it, because like the general story was generally interesting. But like I said, it was just a bit inconsistent. It wasn't doing it for me, and so that one was a hard DNF, at least for now, where I went with that. So I nearly forgot to mention, I think because I was trying to not be so negative all in a row, but it's going to happen. I read Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb, the first book in the Rainwild Chronicles. Now, pretty much everybody I've talked to has said that the Rainwild Chronicles is the low point of the Realm of the Elderlings. And so I was expecting it. My expectations were not even really low. They were basically just non-existent, because usually when people tell you, like, yeah, these ones aren't great, but you read them anyway, I'm like, usually people, when they say that, it means like, it's going to potentially be really bad. So I read this, and I know, because me and Andrew talked about this a ton, and I know he said in his wrap-up too, that I would have absolutely DNF'd this book if it was not written by Robin Hobb. It's still well written for the most part. I really still enjoy Robin Hobb's prose. I still, felt for some of the characters to an extent, but just really, this was not my kind of story at all. It does feel like it's a lot more of a YA type story in this one, and so far into the second one, because I've started at this point by the time I'm filming this, because I'm filming it a little bit late. It does feel a lot more YA. It's just like all the characters are either like teenagers or act like teenagers, and that is one of the things that just annoys me the most. I don't like annoying teenagers, horny teenagers, or adults that act like annoying or horny teenagers, and you just get quite a lot of that. And like, I could kind of see some things that are being done. I know this is supposed to set up more. I've heard books 3 and 4 are better, but this has been pretty disappointing because of how much I love Robin Hobb and how much I absolutely loved the first 9 books in Realm of the Elderlings. So it's pretty sad to say. I still gave this a slightly better rating than I really wanted to, because it really was like a 2.5 for me. I think I gave it like a 3 or a 3.5, just because Robin Hobb got like that buffer point. And I didn't hate it. Like, it didn't really make me like feel anything. I wasn't invested at all. And I'm used to giving Robin Hobb time to develop things, because she is very slow to develop things in a lot of her books. And you'll read through a couple hundred pages, not much will happen, but it's still well written and it's still interesting and there's payoff. There really was no sort of payoff here, and the second book I don't think is going to really have any either. So I'm holding out hope for 3 and 4, but regardless, I definitely will be excited to get to the last trilogy and get back to Fitz, because I'm definitely ready for that already. So ending, we're going to go back positive. Ending on a positive note. I finished, or I DNF'd, I think, Tempest of Bravoure was the last thing I was reading on like the 26th. So I had a few days left. I don't know if it was the 26th. I don't know. Toward the end of the month. I had a few days left of the year, and I had a lot going on with holidays and whatnot, so I didn't have time to get a whole lot of reading done. So I decided I would read Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett, and that was a fantastic decision, because Men at Arms is absolutely fantastic. I've really been enjoying Discworld so far, and some of them have been a little bit hit and miss, but I really haven't had any that I haven't liked completely since Color of Magic, and they've gotten a lot better. With Discworld, I do like reading in publication order. I still am, and that's why this was the next one I had. And I was really excited to read it because it's a Guards book. I really enjoyed Guards. Andrew's been big on this. Alan was big on this. So there were a lot of reasons to read it. And I absolutely just loved this book. This book, honestly, the thing that's the most impressive is how much commentary it fits in while never being preachy, never being like in your face with it, and just having it be so entertaining. It's still full of, tropes from like Guards and police and whatnot, and this one goes a little more on the police side. But we also specifically, like, the story starts out where the City Watch, because of affirmative action, has to hire a dwarf, a troll, and a woman. And it turns out there's more to that. as well, but that's kind of the start, and they're all talking about it, and then we're looking at like the racial tension between the dwarves and the trolls, and all kinds of different things. We get a lot of fun stuff with the guild. We have the invention of the Gone in it as well, and it was just a blast from start to finish. There were so many great lines, great jokes, and there were times too where it's just the commentary was put so well, and just like so tongue-in-cheek, but in a comedic and just perfect way that you almost don't even realize it's there sometimes. There's some times I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I just read, as it was done so well. This is great. If you ever want Discworld, I definitely recommend Discworld. I know a lot of people like to just start and read the Guards books, and despite the fact that I've really enjoyed Publication Order for the extra things you get, this is my new favorite Discworld novel that I've read. I think Small Gods probably had that before, because Small Gods was fantastic. I really enjoyed the Witches books as well, but Men at Arms was just absolute top tier 5-star Pratchett. So it was a really great way to end out both the month and the year on a positive note, especially because I had some other books that I wasn't a huge fan of. So it still made it a really good month, and I quite enjoyed getting to read that. And then jumping straight into all of the stuff that I'm going to be reading in 2022. So that is my wrap-up for December. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these. I know I didn't go into a ton of detail on any of the books because most of them are sequels or DNFs, and so there's only so much I can talk about those without spoilers. So like I said, I'll link out the videos that are associated with things that I talked about down below. And look forward to hearing any of your comments and thoughts on those. Of course, also give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description for the Wizardly Duo Discord if you want to chat these books, anything really at all. It's a lot of fun in the Discord, and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, for one, once again, a huge thank you for watching and subscribing. If you're not subscribed and you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe.